The Iron Lotus dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Villani system, like a metal predator entering a hunting ground. Deho stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display light up with red contacts. Kronak ships filled the space around. The third planet, their weapons firing down at the surface below. "Report," he said calmly. Sujin's fingers flew over her controls. 37 enemy vessels in orbit. Looks like they're bombing civilian targets. I'm reading massive energy signatures from the surface. Cities burning. Taemin studied his weapons. Display with the focus of a man who'd spent years learning how to kill things efficiently. Their ships are big but slow. Heavy armor, but their engines are garbage. Typical bully tactics. They rely on numbers and fear. Haiwan's voice came through the comm from the engine room. "Captain, I'm reading their reactor signatures. These idiots are running their power plants way too hot. One good hit to their engine sections and boom." Jinwoo monitored communications from his station. "I'm picking up Villani emergency broadcasts. They're trying to evacuate civilians, but the Kronak are targeting the escape pods." Daeho's jaw tightened. Targeting escape pods was a war crime in every civilized system. But then again, these weren't civilized people. "Sujin, open a channel to the Kronak fleet." "Channel open, Captain." Daeho's voice carried across space with the calm certainty of someone who'd never learned to back down from a fight. "Kronak vessels, this is Captain Daeho of the Earthship Iron Lotus. You are committing genocide against a civilian population. Cease your attack and withdraw from this system immediately." The response came back in harsh, guttural tones. "Human ship, you are in Kronak territory now. Turn around and leave, or we will add your wreckage to the debris field." A different voice joined the channel, speaking the same alien language but with cruel laughter mixed in. Sujin translated through her earpiece. "They're saying humans are weak, that we hide behind our machines because we're too soft to fight properly." Taemin looked up from his weapons console with a grin that would have worried anyone who knew him well. "Captain, permission to show them how soft we are?" "In a moment," Daeho said. He keyed the comm again. "This is your only warning. Leave now." More laughter from the Kronak channel. Then the line went dead. On the tactical display, several enemy ships began turning toward the Iron Lotus. Their weapons powered up with energy signatures that would have vaporized most ships in the galaxy. "Well," Daeho said, settling into his command chair, "we tried. Diplomacy." The first Kronak missiles launched, streaking across space toward the human ship. There were dozens of them, each one carrying enough explosive power to level a city block. "Evasive maneuvers," Daeho ordered. The Iron Lotus moved like no ship its size should be able to move. Where other vessels would lumber through space like flying buildings, the human ship twisted and rolled with the grace of a fighter craft. Missiles that should have been guaranteed hits sailed harmlessly past. "Their targeting systems can't keep up with us," Sujin reported. "They're used to fighting slow, predictable ships." Taemin returned fire. "Let's show them what human weapons do." "Gladly, Captain." The Iron Lotus spoke with the voice of perfectly engineered destruction. Plasma bolts streaked out from its forward cannons, moving faster than anything the Kronak had ever seen. The first salvo hit 3 enemy ships simultaneously. The results were spectacular and terrifying. Where Kronak weapons would have slowly burned through armor plating, human plasma tore through the alien ships like they were made of paper. 2 vessels exploded immediately. The third one broke in half, its crew screaming on the emergency channels as atmosphere vented into space. "What the hell did you put in those plasma cannons?" Daeho asked. Haiwan's voice came through the comm with obvious pride. "Seoul military-grade plasma, compressed to about 3 times normal density, plus some modifications I've been working on." The Kronak fleet's formation scattered as more human weapons found their targets. Railgun slugs, moving at a significant fraction of light speed, punched through multiple ships at once. Missiles that adjusted their course mid-flight to exploit tiny weaknesses in enemy armor. But the real terror came from watching the Iron Lotus fight. Every movement was calculated. Every shot was precise. There was no wasted effort, no random firing. The humans fought like they'd been designed specifically to kill things. and they were very, very good at their job. Enemy flagship is trying to ram us, Sujin reported. Let them come, Daeho said. Taemin, do you have a clear shot at their bridge? I have a clear shot at their captain's coffee cup if you want. Just the bridge will be fine. A single precise shot from the Iron Lotus's main cannon removed the Kronak flagship's command section. The massive ship tumbled out of control, its engines still firing but with no one left alive to steer it. The battle lasted 18 minutes. When it was over, 37 Kronak ships had been reduced to debris and emergency escape pods. The Iron Lotus hadn't taken a single hit. Damage report, Daeho said. None, sir, came Hyawan's voice. Though I think we overheated the plasma. Coils a bit. Give me 10 minutes and we'll be ready for round 2. Sujin was monitoring alien communication channels. Captain, the remaining Kronak forces in the system are requesting permission to surrender. Tell them they can surrender to the Vallani. We're not interested in prisoners. On the surface of the planet below, the bombing had stopped. Vallani emergency broadcasts were switching from panicked evacuation orders to confused reports of the attacking fleet's sudden destruction. Jin Wu translated the alien voices. They're asking who we are. They can't understand how one ship destroyed an entire Kronak attack force. Tell them we're humans, Daeho said, and that genocide is bad for business. As the Iron Lotus moved toward the planet to assess the damage and help with rescue operations, word was already spreading through Kronak space. An entire fleet destroyed by a single human vessel in less than 20 minutes. The survivors' reports would be dismissed as panic and cowardice, but the smart ones would start asking questions about this species called humans. Captain, Sujin said, I'm detecting more Kronak ships heading this way. Looks like reinforcements. How, Benny? 68 vessels, including 2 of their heavy battleships. Taemin cracked his knuckles. Good. I was starting to get bored. Hyawan's voice came through the comm with obvious excitement. Captain, permission to test that experimental weapon system from Seoul? What does it do? Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. The manual just says point away from friendly targets and use only when you really mean it. Daeho considered this. They were outnumbered 68-1 by ships that now knew they were dangerous. The smart tactical choice would be to retreat and call for backup. But humans had never been known for making smart tactical choices. They were known for making choices that worked. Permission granted, he said. Let's see what Seoul's weapons designers think constitutes excessive firepower. As the Iron Lotus prepared for the next wave of enemies, the crew worked with the calm efficiency of people who'd done this before. They weren't heroes in their own minds. They were just humans doing what humans did when faced with bullies who picked on people who couldn't fight back. They were about to remind the galaxy why Earth's most dangerous export wasn't technology or weapons. It was humans who viewed impossible odds as a personal challenge and genocide, as something that needed to be corrected immediately and permanently. The hunt was far from over. Captain Daeho sat in his command chair, watching the stars through the bridge windows of the Iron Lotus. The massive ship moved through space like a metal mountain, its hull black as the void around it. He sipped his coffee and checked the patrol reports. Another quiet day in the Outer Rim territories. The silence broke when Sujin looked up from her station. Her fingers danced across the control panel as she frowned at her screen. Captain, I'm getting something strange on long-range sensors. What kind of strange? Daeho set down his cup and walked over to her station. It's a distress signal, but it's not from any human ship. The pattern is all wrong. Sujin's dark eyes reflected the blue glow of her monitors. And it's being broadcast on every frequency at once. Taemin looked up from his weapons console across the bridge. Every frequency? That's either very stupid or very desperate. Let me hear it, Daeho said. Sujin pressed a button. Static filled the bridge. Then a voice came through. It sounded wrong, like someone speaking through water. The words were in Galactic Standard, but the accent was thick with fear. This is anyone who can hear this message. We are the Vallani people. Our worlds are dying. The Kronak Empire attacks our colonies. They kill everyone. Men, women, children. Please, if anyone receives this, we need help. We have no weapons. We have no ships that can fight them. They say they will destroy us all. Please help us, please. The message repeated, growing weaker each time. The bridge fell quiet. HFY, the chief engineer, had come up from the engine room during the broadcast. Her coveralls were stained with machine oil, and she wiped her hands on a rag. How far away are they? Sujin checked her calculations. About 6 days at maximum burn. 6 days, Jinwoo said from his medical station. How many people could die in 6 days? Daeho looked at the star map displayed on the main screen. The Volani systems were marked in red now, showing active conflict zones. What do we know about these Kronak? Taemin pulled up files on his screen. Nasty pieces of work. They've been expanding their territory for the last 50 years. They don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They just show up and start killing until everyone's dead or runs away. And the Volani? Daeho asked. Peaceful traders, Sujin said, reading from her database. They never developed military technology. They make art and grow food and sell things to other species. They've never hurt anyone. HFY spat on the deck. Of course they haven't. And now some bullies are picking on them because they can't fight back. Daeho rubbed his chin. He'd been in space for 20 years and he'd seen this before. Strong people hurting weak people because they could. It made him angry in a way that went deep into his bones. What's the Galactic Council doing about this? He asked. Taemin laughed, but there was no humor in it. The Council? They're probably forming a committee to discuss forming another committee to think about maybe sending a strongly worded letter. While people die, Jinwoo said quietly. While people die, Taemin agreed. Daeho walked back to his command chair. He'd served with these people for 8 years. He knew how they thought. He could see it in their faces. They all wanted to help, but they were waiting for him to make the call. Sujin, how long would it take the council to actually send help? If they decide to help at all, 6 months minimum. Maybe a year. And how long do the Volani have? Sujin looked at the signal. Strength readings. The attacks are getting worse. Based on the signal degradation, I'd say weeks, maybe days. Daeho sat down and steepled his fingers. The Iron Lotus was a patrol ship, not a rescue vessel. They had orders to guard the Outer Rim territories, not go chasing distress calls from alien species. But those orders came from people who sat in comfortable offices and never heard the fear in a dying person's voice. HFY, what's our weapons status? Full load. Plasma cannons, missile tubes, railguns, the works. Plus that. New experimental stuff from the Seoul shipyards that I'm not supposed to talk about. And our crew? All present. All ready. Daeho looked around the bridge at his people. Sujin with her brilliant tactical mind. Taemin, who could put a missile through a keyhole from 1,000 kilometers away. HFY, who could make their ship. Do things that should be impossible. Jinwoo, who could patch up anyone well enough to keep fighting. They were good people. Human people. And humans had never been good at watching bullies hurt innocent folks. The way I see it, Daeho said slowly, we have 2 choices. We can follow our orders and stay here while an entire species gets murdered. Or we can go remind some aliens why humans don't like bullies. Taemin grinned. I vote for option 2. Same here, Sujin said. Those Kronak bastards picked the wrong victims, HFY growled. Jinwoo just nodded. Daeho stood up. Sujin, plot a course for Volani space. Maximum burn. Aye, Captain. Taemin, start running diagnostics on all weapon systems. I want everything ready to fight. Already on it, sir. HFY, push the engines as hard as you can without breaking them. We need speed. I'll give you speed that'll make your teeth rattle. Jinwoo, prep the medical bay. We might have wounded to treat. Understood, Captain. As the Iron Lotus changed, of course the crew worked with the smooth efficiency of people who'd done this before. But there was something different this time. Usually they fought pirates or smugglers. This time they were going up against an entire empire. Sujin pulled up tactical data on the Kronak fleet. Captain, the numbers don't look good. Intelligence says they have over 200 ships in Volani space. How many do we have? Daeho asked. 1. Taemin laughed. Sounds about right for us. The ship's engines roared to life, pushing the Iron Lotus faster than most alien vessels could safely travel. But humans built their ships to handle what would kill other species. They built everything that way. As they entered hyperspace, Deho watched the stars stretch into lines outside his windows. Somewhere ahead, people were dying. An entire species was begging the galaxy for help, and the galaxy was going to let them down, the same way it always did. But humans were different. Humans didn't send aid packages and refugee ships when someone was being murdered. They sent warships crewed by people who'd grown up on a planet where everything tried to kill them every day. They sent people who understood that sometimes the only way to stop a bully was to hit them so hard they never got up again. The distress signal kept playing in the background, weaker now but still there, still begging for help that wouldn't come from anyone else, but it was coming from them. The Iron Lotus flew through hyperspace toward a war zone, carrying 5 humans who'd decided that genocide was something that needed to be stopped right now. Not after 6 months of committee meetings. They didn't know they were about to teach the galaxy why Earth was feared across known space. They just knew that innocent people were dying, and that was something humans couldn't ignore. The hunt was about to begin. The second Kronak fleet arrived expecting to find their comrades finishing off the Volani resistance. Instead, they found debris fields and one very calm human ship waiting for them. Admiral Vextar commanded the Kronak reinforcement fleet from his massive dreadnought, the Bone Crusher. He was a veteran of 40 campaigns and had never met an enemy he couldn't overwhelm with superior numbers and firepower. When his sensors showed only one enemy ship, he assumed his advance force had been destroyed by some kind of trap or superweapon. Deploy, in attack formation, he ordered his fleet. Surround the human vessel. Use overwhelming firepower to ensure quick destruction. On the Iron Lotus, Deho watched the enemy ships spread out in a classic encirclement pattern. They're not very creative, are they? Sujin studied the tactical display. Standard Kronak doctrine. They rely on their ships being tougher and their crews being more vicious than their enemies. Problem is, they've never fought humans before. Their formation has a weakness, Taemin observed. If we hit their command ship hard enough, the others will lose coordination. What about that experimental weapon? Deho asked. Haiwan's voice came through the comm with barely contained excitement. It's ready, Captain. Fair warning, though. This thing might be visible from the next system over. Before Deho could respond, the Kronak fleet opened fire. Space filled with energy beams, missiles, and projectiles that would have reduced most ships to atomic particles. The barrage was so intense it created an artificial aurora as charged particles interacted with the local star's magnetic field. Iron Lotus disappeared into the light show. Admiral Vextar watched his screens with satisfaction. No ship could survive that kind of concentrated firepower. The humans might be tricky, but they were still just flesh and metal. Then something impossible happened. The human ship emerged from the weapon storm completely unharmed. Its hull didn't even show scorch marks. Shields at 98%, Sujin reported calmly. I think they scratched the paint on Deck 7. Deho keyed the comm. Kronak fleet, you had your chance to leave. Now you get to learn why the galaxy fears humans. Haiwan, fire urane, toy. What happened next would be talked about in military academies for the next 100 years. The Iron Lotus's experimental weapon wasn't a gun or a missile launcher. It was something much worse. It was a device that turned the basic forces of physics into a weapon. A beam of pure energy lanced out from the human ship. But this wasn't normal energy. This was matter conversion on a stellar scale. The beam hit Admiral Vexitar's flagship and didn't just destroy it. It unmade it. Every atom in the massive dreadnought was converted to energy in a chain reaction that lit up space like a newborn star. The explosion was so bright that the crews of nearby ships were temporarily blinded, even through their protective filters. When their vision cleared, the Bone Crusher was simply gone. Not destroyed, not blown apart, just gone. Where there had been a ship carrying 8,000 crew members, there was now empty space and a lot of very confused energy readings. Well, Haiwan said over the comm, That worked better than expected. The remaining Kronak ships hung in space, their crews trying to process what they'd just witnessed. Their most powerful battleship had been erased from existence by a single shot from the human vessel. The weapon that had done it showed no signs of overheating or needing to recharge. Sujin, open a channel to the remaining ships, Deho said. Channel open, Captain. Kronak vessels, you have seen what happens when you threaten innocent people in front of humans. You can surrender now, or you can find out if we have more weapons like that one. The response was immediate. 67 ships began powering down, their weapons and engines. Surrender signals flooded the communication channels in a dozen different languages. Tae-min, keep our weapons locked on them. If any of them so much as twitch wrong, introduce them to conventional ordnance. Understood, Captain? As the Iron Lotus moved through the surrendered fleet, collecting prisoners and securing dangerous weapons, word was spreading through the galaxy at light speed. Communication relays carried the impossible news from system to system. A single human ship had defeated 2 entire Kronak fleets without taking damage. On the Volani homeworld, the surviving population emerged from their shelters to find their skies clear of enemy ships for the first time in months. The bombardment had stopped. The killing had stopped. And in orbit above their world, a black metal ship waited like a guardian angel carved from weapons-grade steel. Captain, Jinwoo said from his station, I'm getting communication requests from the Volani government. They want to thank us. Put them through. The voice that came through the speakers was shaky with exhaustion and relief. Human ship, this is Prime Minister Keldan of the Volani Republic. We don't have words to thank you. You saved our entire species. No thanks necessary, Deho replied. We just did what needed doing. But you fought an entire empire. For us. You risked your lives for people you've never met. Sujin looked up from her station with a slight smile. That's what humans do. There was a long pause from the planet. The galaxy said humans were dangerous. They said you were killers who couldn't be trusted. The galaxy was half right, Deho said. We are dangerous. We are killers. But we only kill things that need killing. As the Iron Lotus began rescue operations, pulling Volani survivors from damaged ships and destroyed colonies, the crew worked with the efficient compassion that marked human rescue operations. The same hands that had operated weapons of mass destruction now gently treated wounded civilians and coordinated food distribution. Captain, Sujin said quietly, I'm picking up long-range communications. Word is spreading fast. Other Kronak fleets are being recalled to defend their core systems. Good. Maybe they'll think twice before picking on people who can't fight back. Taemin looked up from his console. Sir, what if they come back with bigger fleets? We can't be everywhere at once. Deho considered this. The Iron Lotus was just one ship. There were thousands of Kronak vessels in their empire, and billions of potential victims throughout the galaxy. Sujin, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we need reinforcements. What kind of reinforcements? The kind that will make sure the Kronak never threaten innocent people again. As the message streaked through hyperspace toward Earth, the crew of the Iron Lotus continued their rescue work. They didn't know that their actions had already changed the balance of power in the galaxy. They didn't know that species across known space were quietly cheering for the humans who had stood up to the Kronak Empire. All they knew was that innocent people had been in danger, and now they weren't. The rest was just details, but in the depths of space, more human ships were already moving. Earth had received the message, and Earth was responding the way it always did when someone threatened people under human protection. The galaxy was about to learn that humans didn't just send one ship to deal with bullies. They sent enough ships to make sure the bullying stopped permanently. The Kronak Empire had picked a fight with the wrong species. Now they were going to find out why humans were feared across the stars, and why that fear was completely justified. 3 days after the Iron Lotus had eliminated 2 Kronak fleets, the first human reinforcements began arriving. They didn't come quietly. The Steel Tiger dropped out of hyperspace with the subtle grace of a falling meteor, its hull painted in tiger stripes that seemed to shift and move in the starlight. Its captain, Boram, was a specialist in something the human military called psychological warfare, though most species just called it terrifying. Iron Lotus, this is Steel Tiger, came Boram's voice over the comm. Heard you started a war. Without us? Deho smiled at his old friend's voice. Boram, good to see you, though I'd hardly call it a war. More like pest control. Any pests left for us to spray? Plenty. The Kronak have pulled their fleets back to fortified positions. They're trying to figure out what hit them. The Ghost Dragon materialized next, though materialized was the wrong word. One moment the space near the Iron Lotus was empty, the next moment there was a ship there that seemed to bend light around itself. Its captain, Kyung-ho, had a talent for making things disappear. Ghost Dragon reporting, came Kyung-ho's quiet voice. Sorry we're late. Had to make a stop at a Kronak supply depot. They won't be needing it anymore. More ships arrived over the next few hours. The Jade Serpent carrying Marine Commander Mi Young and her boarding specialists. The Golden Eagle, with its experimental weapons that made the Iron Lotus's arsenal look conservative. The Silent Storm, whose crew specialized in making enemy computers do very unpleasant things to their owners. By the end of the day, 12 human vessels hung in space around the Villani homeworld. Each ship was unique, designed by different human worlds with different ideas about how to most efficiently kill things that needed killing. Admiral Gethmore of the Kronak Empire watched the human fleet through his spy drones and felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: fear. Not the healthy caution of a warrior facing a strong enemy, but the cold, gut-deep terror of a predator realizing it had become prey. How many ships do the humans have? He asked his intelligence officer. These. 12, sir. But our spies report more are coming. More? How many more? Unknown, sir. Earth has over 50 core worlds, each with its own military, and they're all very angry about what we did to the Villani. Gethmore studied the tactical displays. 12 ships against his remaining fleets of over 300 vessels. The numbers should favor him overwhelmingly. But numbers hadn't helped at Villani Prime, and they hadn't helped his reinforcement fleets either. What do we know about these new ships? The Steel Tiger appears to specialize in broadcasting human music at enemy vessels. The Golden Eagle's weapons readings are impossible. The Ghost Dragon keeps disappearing from our sensors even when we're looking directly at it. Music? Gethmore asked. They're going to fight us with music? His question was answered an hour later when the human fleet moved toward the nearest Kronak stronghold. The Steel Tiger led the way, and as it approached the enemy fortress, it began broadcasting. The Kronak defenders expected to hear human battle cries or propaganda. Instead, they heard something much worse: human war songs. The music was unlike anything in their experience. It had rhythm that made their hearts race, melodies that stirred emotions they didn't have names for, and lyrics about fighting against impossible odds and winning anyway. Within minutes, half the Kronak garrison had surrendered. The music didn't just demoralize them. It made them understand on a level deeper than thought that they were facing something beyond their comprehension. These humans didn't just fight wars. They sang about it. They made art about killing their enemies and protecting their friends. The fortress is surrendering, reported Boram with satisfaction. I think they like our music. What song were you playing? Deho asked. Korean war ballad from the old days. Something about tigers hunting in the mountains. The Ghost Dragon took the next target, a Kronak weapons depot that should have been impregnable. The facility was hidden in an asteroid field protected by minefields and automated defense systems. It should have taken weeks to crack with conventional tactics. Kyung-ho's ship simply disappeared from all sensors and reappeared inside the facility's shields. The depot's defenses couldn't target what they couldn't see, and by the time anyone realized the humans were inside, it was too late. The entire installation went up in a fireball that lit up the asteroid field like a new star. Ghost Dragon to fleet, came Kyung-ho's calm report. Target eliminated. No human casualties. Several thousand tons of Kronak weapons and supplies converted to pretty lights. Mi Young's Marines took a different approach. When the Kronak tried to use civilian Hostages as shields, her boarding teams teleported directly onto enemy ships and began working their way through the corridors. Kronak soldiers, bred for violence and trained in cruelty, found themselves facing humans in powered armor, who fought with the precision of machines and the fury of protective parents. The battles were short and extremely one-sided. Marines who had grown up on worlds where the gravity could crush most aliens moved through Kronak ships like unstoppable forces of nature. Their armor absorbed weapons fire that would have killed anything else, and their weapons punched through Kronak defenses, like they were made of cardboard. Boarding action complete, Mi-Young reported after her teams had cleared their third enemy vessel. Hostages secured, enemy crew neutralized, though I think we broke their ship a little. Okay, a lot. As the human fleet systematically dismantled, Kronak positions, word spread through the enemy empire. These weren't just warships they were fighting. These were floating nightmares crewed by beings who had turned warfare into an art form. Intelligence Officer Sang-woo coordinated the psychological campaign from his ship, the Silver Hawk. He had studied Kronak culture and psychology, and he knew exactly which buttons to push. Messages were broadcast throughout their empire, showing the destruction of their fleets and the ease with which human forces eliminated their defenses. The key, he explained to the other captains during a strategy meeting, is to make them understand that resistance is not just futile, it's ridiculous. We're not just beating them militarily, we're making them look foolish. The campaign worked better than expected. Kronak commanders began surrendering entire systems rather than face human forces. Their empire, built on fear and intimidation, crumbled when faced with beings who were genuinely more frightening than they were. But the humans weren't just destroying the Kronak military. They were systematically dismantling the infrastructure that allowed the empire to exist. Supply lines were cut, command centers were eliminated, propaganda broadcasts were replaced with human messages explaining that genocide was no longer acceptable in this part of the galaxy. Captain, Sujin reported, to Daeho, we're getting surrender offers from 17 different Kronak systems. They want to negotiate terms. Tell them we don't negotiate with people who target civilians, Daeho replied. They can surrender unconditionally, or they can find out what our other weapons do. As the human fleet prepared for the final assault, on the Kronak homeworld, the crews worked with the same calm efficiency they'd shown throughout the campaign. They weren't celebrating victory yet because the job wasn't finished. There were still Kronak leaders who needed to learn that genocide had consequences. The galaxy watched in fascination and terror as 12 human ships prepared to attack the most heavily fortified system in Kronak space. Military analysts predicted the battle would last weeks and cost thousands of lives. They were wrong about both the duration and the casualties. The humans were about to demonstrate why Earth didn't just send aid to species under threat. They sent extinction events with a moral code and very specific ideas about justice. The Kronak homeworld system was a fortress built over centuries of conquest. Massive space stations ringed the planet like metal moons, each one bristling with enough weapons to destroy a fleet. Minefields created deadly corridors between the defensive positions. The planet itself was covered in surface-to-space cannons that could reach targets anywhere in the system. Supreme Leader Krakthul watched the approaching human fleet from his command bunker deep beneath the capital city. 12 ships against the most powerful defensive network in the galaxy. The humans were brave, he admitted, but they were also insane. All defensive stations report ready, his tactical officer announced. We have over 1,500 weapons platforms online. The minefields are active. Surface batteries are charged and targeted. And the human ships? Still approaching, sir. They're not even trying to be stealthy. They're flying straight toward our main defensive line. Krakthul studied the tactical display. The humans had shown themselves to be dangerous, but this was different. This was his home territory, with defenses built over hundreds of years. Here, numbers and firepower would matter more than tricks and advanced technology. Open fire as soon as they enter range, he ordered. Show these humans what happens when they threaten the Kronak Empire. On the Iron Lotus, Daeho sat calmly, in his command chair as enemy weapons began lighting up his sensors. The defensive network was impressive, he had to admit. Any normal fleet would be torn apart long before reaching the planet. But humans had never built normal fleets. Sujin, begin the Soul Solution, he ordered. What happened next would redefine how the galaxy thought about warfare. The human ships didn't charge into the defensive network or try to fight their way through the minefields. Instead, they demonstrated why human tactical thinking was so feared throughout known space. The Golden Eagle opened fire first, but not at the enemy stations. Its weapons targeted the gravitational fields holding the defensive platforms in position. Energy beams that existed only in theoretical physics textbooks reached out across space and gently nudged massive space stations out of their carefully calculated orbits. The result was controlled chaos. Defensive platforms that had been positioned to provide overlapping fields of fire suddenly found themselves blocking each other's shots. Minefields that had been precisely placed to channel enemy ships into kill zones were now scattered across empty space. "What are they doing?" Krakthul demanded. "They're rearranging our defenses, sir. Somehow they're moving our space stations." The Ghost Dragon vanished from sensors and reappeared inside the defensive perimeter. But instead of attacking the stations, it began broadcasting false targeting data to their computers. Weapons platforms that should have been firing at human ships instead began targeting each other. "Our stations are firing on each other," the tactical officer reported in panic. "The targeting computers are malfunctioning." Meanwhile, the Steel Tiger continued its psychological warfare campaign. Instead of playing music this time, Boram was broadcasting something much more effective: the complete tactical records of every battle the humans had fought against the Kronak. Enemy crews watched their supposedly invincible fleets being destroyed with surgical precision, and morale began to collapse. Mi Young's Marines took a more direct approach. Instead of trying to break through the defensive line, they teleported directly onto the command stations and began systematically shutting down weapon systems from the inside. Kronak security forces found themselves facing humans in powered armor, who moved through their corridors like unstoppable killing machines. But the real demonstration of human tactical superiority came from Sujin's coordination of the entire operation. She had spent weeks studying the Kronak defensive network, identifying every weakness and calculating exactly how to exploit them. The Soul Solution wasn't just a battle plan. It was a masterpiece of tactical thinking that turned the enemy's strengths into fatal weaknesses. "Enemy Command Station 3 is offline," reported Mi Young as her Marines finished their work. "Defensive Platform 7 through 15 are now targeting Platform 16, added Kyung Ho from the Ghost Dragon. "Station crews are requesting permission to surrender," Boram announced with satisfaction. Within 2 hours, the most powerful defensive network in Kronak space had been completely neutralized without the human fleet firing a single shot at the planet below. The space stations were either destroyed, captured, or firing on each other. The minefields had been scattered or reprogrammed to target Kronak ships. The surface batteries couldn't get a clear shot because their own defensive platforms were in the way. "This is impossible," Krakthul whispered, staring at his tactical displays. "How can 12 ships defeat our entire defensive network?" "They're not fighting our defenses," his tactical officer said in a shaky voice. "They're using our defenses against us." The Iron Lotus moved toward the planet with the calm certainty of a predator approaching cornered prey. Daeho opened communications. "To the surface. Supreme Leader Krakthul, this is Captain Daeho of the human fleet. Your defenses are neutralized. Your fleets are destroyed. Your empire is finished. You have one choice. Surrender now, or find out what happens when humans stop being polite." "Never!" Krakthul screamed over the comm. "The Kronak Empire will never surrender to inferior species. We will fight to the last warrior." "So be it," Daeho replied calmly. What followed was not a battle but a demonstration. The human ships descended toward the planet like metal angels of judgment, their weapons speaking with voices that had been tuned specifically for this moment. But they didn't target civilian populations or cultural sites. Instead, they struck with surgical precision at military installations, government buildings, and the infrastructure that kept the Kronak war machine functioning. Every shot was perfect. Every target was chosen for maximum tactical effect. The humans weren't trying to conquer the Kronak homeworld. They were dismantling the ability of the Kronak Empire to threaten anyone ever again. Within 6 hours, It was over. The capital city's military district was a smoking ruin. Government buildings lay in carefully arranged piles of rubble. The orbital shipyards that had built the Kronak fleet were twisted metal sculptures that would never build anything again. But the civilian areas remained untouched. Schools, hospitals, and residential districts showed no damage. The humans had fought a war that eliminated their enemies while protecting innocent people who had never chosen to be part of an empire built on genocide. Attention, people of the Kronak homeworld, Deho's voice carried across the planet's communication networks. Your government has surrendered. Your military has been disbanded. Your empire is finished. But you are not your leaders. You have a chance to build something better. In his bunker, Krakthul stared at screens showing his destroyed military and his untouched cities. The humans had done something he couldn't comprehend. They had fought a war without becoming the monsters they fought against. Sir, his aide whispered, they're requesting your surrender. They say if you come out peacefully, you'll be treated according to galactic law. Krakthul looked around his command center at the faces of his staff. They were afraid, but not of death. They were afraid of what would happen if they kept fighting people who could destroy military targets while protecting civilians. Open a channel, he said quietly. Across the galaxy, the news spread at light speed. The Kronak Empire had fallen. Not to a massive fleet or a coalition of species, but to 12 human ships that had fought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. On the Volani homeworld, Prime Minister Keldan addressed his people and the galaxy. Today we have seen what humans truly are. They are not the monsters some species claim. They are the people you call when monsters threaten the innocent. The Iron Lotus and its sister ships began the long journey home, carrying news of their victory and prisoners who would face trial for war crimes. The crew worked with the same calm efficiency they'd shown throughout the campaign, because to them, they had simply done what needed to be done. Think they'll try something like this again? Sujin asked as they entered hyperspace. Someone will, Deho replied. There are always bullies in the galaxy, and there will always be humans to stop them, Taemin added with a grin. Behind them, the former Kronak Empire began the long process of rebuilding itself into something better. Species throughout the galaxy quietly celebrated the fall of the genocidal regime, and on Earth, military planners updated their files on what constituted an appropriate response to threats against civilian populations. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humans didn't send aid when someone was being murdered. They sent warships crewed by people who viewed genocide as a personal insult requiring immediate correction. And that, as it turned out, was exactly what the galaxy needed.